I told you that common sense is holding you back from ever becoming irreplaceable in your work? Today's most influential CEOs and industry leaders don't rely on common sense. They use a completely different mental model. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what that is and how you can apply that in your situation. By the end of the video, you're going to have a completely different way of thinking about things that positions you as irreplaceable in your industry. Common sense is commodity thinking. If you think about it, everyone says to use your common sense. A lot of people give advice like that, just use your common sense. But think about what is common sense. Common sense is nothing more than a consensus. It means what everybody else is doing, what everybody else is thinking, how everybody else sees it, what everybody else would do in that situation if they were so-and-so and fill in the blank. So if you desire to rise up and stand out, think about it. Rising up and standing out is not common. It's an uncommon result. So common sense is consensus thinking. Common sense produces common results. So if you do what everybody else is doing, if you think what everybody else is thinking, you're going to have common results. But if you desire to stand up, rise up above the crowd, it's an uncommon result. You can't have an uncommon result with common thinking. So this is really where it's really important. If you desire to be irreplaceable, stand up, rise up, you got to adopt a different way of thinking, a way that is not common. Common also means conventional or traditional, a way that is outside of the norms of what everybody else is doing. Because if you desire success that is above and beyond what people have, and people are telling you to use your common sense, look at the result they have. If they don't have the result or the success that you desire, or if they've never helped anyone to achieve the result that you desire, then if you follow their advice, you're going to have what they have. You're going to have the result that they have, which is a common result. So this requires a completely different set of mental models. Now think about it. You have a mental model about everything. Mental models are your brain's way of making sense of everything that happens around you in a situation, in a challenge, in a relationship, in your workplace, at home, in your private life as well. It's your brain's way of making sense of everything, making meaning out of it so you know what to do, so you can make decisions, so you can make progress. But the thing is, with your mental models, they got there by default. They got there from your life experiences. They got there not because you've been sitting there and restructuring them and designing them, but they are what they are because it just happened that way. Now is the time where if you're at a threshold in your career, and definitely at a threshold in your professional growth, it's time to look at your mental models. It's time to unlearn some of those, and it's time to update some of those because some of those are outdated or some of those are inaccurate. It's time to update those and adopt a way of thinking that's not common. That's not conventional, that is not common sense. Because if you continue to hold on to these mental models that you've been having, the only activity that can happen as a result of that is the activity that aligns with your current mental models. But your current mental models is what got you here. Your current mental models cannot be the ones that get you there, where you want to go next. So it requires a lot of reflection and self-awareness. It also requires a lot of unlearning patterns. And it definitely requires a lot of intention towards restructuring and rebuilding. So then when you do that, you see the world around you completely differently. You approach situations and challenges completely differently. And you become someone who can think at much higher levels that are above the noise, above the common consensus thinking, into a way of thinking that is strategic. And you get to join the ranks of those influential CEOs and industry leaders who are thinking above the noise as well. The second thing about common sense is that common sense says that resources are limiting. And for example, it could be resources in terms of help. Common sense that says that help is limiting. Common sense also says that finances are limited. Common sense also says that capital is limiting. So if you adopt common sense thinking, everything feels like it's scarce. And it looks like a piece of a pie. The whole economy, the whole company, the whole opportunity landscape will feel like a pie where if somebody else gets that opportunity, if someone else achieves their goals, if someone else becomes successful, they get a piece of the pie and there's less left over for you and for other people. And so common sense creates that micro environment in your thinking. And here's what happens when you have this way of thinking where it's scarcity, where resources are limited. What happens is that you resort to protecting and you resort to hoarding. Let me give you a concrete example. Earlier, I mentioned that one of the resources that will feel like it's limiting is help. So when you adopt common sense, it's going to feel like, well, it's common sense. If I want to do the job well, I have to do it myself. It's common sense that nobody can do this because I'm the best at doing what I do and no one can do it as good as I do. So I have to really roll up my sleeves and I have to be involved in that. Or it's hard to find good help around here. Right? Common sense it will say that resources are limited, help is limited. So as a result of that belief, you're going to hoard control. I have to do it all myself. It's hard to find good help. I have to get in there and I have to depend on myself and no one else. So as a result of you hoard control. And as you hoard control, there are consequences. It's difficult and nearly impossible for you to step up in higher level strategy because a lot of what you do is going to be involved in the day-to-day, be involved in your activities and in your responsibilities. And it's really hard to have the time and the bandwidth to be able to step up into higher level thinking and higher level decisions. So you see, there are consequences, step-by-step consequences to having this commodity thinking in terms of resources are limited. Now, the other example I gave you is that commodity thinking believes that resources are limited, and one of the common resources that they believe is limited is money. So if you believe that money is limiting, everything's going to appear too expensive. And it's understandable that if you want to step up into your higher level role, that it'll be wise for you to invest in yourself, invest in new skill sets, invest in things that you never learned in school, invest in things that your company cannot provide training for you. But it's going to feel too expensive to do that because of commodity thinking. Common sense is going to tell you that resources are limited, right? And so that has consequences too. If everything's too expensive, I have to figure it out myself. I can't afford that. And as a result of that, it's a lot of churning and burning out and working overtime. So you see, there's consequences to thinking, even if you don't even realize the way you've been thinking. Commodity thinking, common sense thinking happens in the background. So here's where the mindset shift needs to take place. These are all mental models as well. Mental models, you got to understand, they shape the decisions you make, the way you behave, the way you navigate situations. It shapes all of that because it's how you understand things. It's how you perceive the world around you. So the shift you got to make is from a scarcity mindset, ditch the scarcity mindset and adopt an abundance mindset. Because the fact is, the economy is not like a pie where if someone else is successful, if someone else has the resource, if someone else reaches a goal, that there's left over for you. The most influential CEOs and industry leaders don't think of things like a pie. They are not trying to compete for a bigger slice of the pie. What they're doing is they're multiplying their value because the world works more like a garden where consumption and success and the achievement of goals creates more opportunities, greater opportunities for everybody else. And so this is a completely different way of thinking, definitely not common sense. It is a multiplicative way of thinking, and it requires a deeper understanding of the inner workings of your own mind. What have you been believing? What have your mental models been? Is it really true? And to really challenge your way of thinking. Ditching the scarcity mindset and adopting the abundance mindset so that you can be someone who multiplies values and creates opportunities for others. And in turn, as you're doing that, you're thinking and operating from a higher strategy, and you're thinking and operating as an owner instead of an executioner. If you're listening to this and you are recognizing that there is still some common sense thinking, and you see the value of shifting your thinking because you really do desire to get into your next level opportunity, then I invite you to click the link below this video. And you're going to notice that when you click that link, there are multiple different opportunities to work with me, to work with my coaching team, and to really create that shift for you in that next level. And depending on how you want to work, maybe you desire just to self-study. Maybe you desire to work with me directly. Maybe you desire to talk to somebody and to talk about how we can work together because you're not sure how to make that decision. So just click the link below. There are different and explore everything that I have to offer, and you can choose how you want to work with me and my team to get you to the next level of your opportunity. Given the two characteristics of common sense, it creating a scarcity mindset and it creating commodity thinking, now I'm going to share with you some perspective shifts to help you become irreplaceable. And there are 4 perspective shifts. The first perspective shift is shifting from the common belief, the common perspective that, well, I got to look for the best known path. And this is very common. I see this a lot in corporations and in leadership advice and career advice as well. They go, look for the best known path. And here's the thing about the best known path. The best known path is best known to who? And if it's best known and everybody's taken it, what are you doing? In essence, you're turning it into a commodity as well, and you're getting common results. So instead of adopting the best known path and being passive in that pursuit of the best known path, what I encourage you to do is shift that perspective into anticipating the ripple effect. Because the fact is, the best known path may have been best known for one era, but it may not continue to be the best known path for this era or the future era. So instead, if you look for ripple effects, what you begin to see is a mindset of abundance and bigger picture thinking, where you can see how all the outcomes are integrated together and how you can be the source of that integration, and how, as you, the source of the integration, how you can multiply your value and multiply the payoff for your domain and for your field. So this anticipation of ripple effect involves adopting the abundance mindset, and it involves expanding your time frames and expanding your space and time frames as well, so that you can see how the choices you're making and how the value you're adding, how that creates ripple effects, like ripples in the pond. And sometimes it's one ripple out, or 2 or 3 ripples out, that can make all the difference. The second perspective shift is the one that you're shifting from protecting your turf. I also hear this a lot. It's very common in the workplace where I got to protect my turf. Your turf could be, I got to protect my intellectual property. It could be, I got to protect my area of activity. I don't want anyone crowding into my lane, right? Protecting one's turf. And I understand where it comes from, the feeling of security in protecting one's turf, because the workplace necessarily is a competitive environment and business is a very competitive landscape. But I encourage you, shift away from protecting your turf into growing value for all. Because chances are, the reason why you listen to me in my videos on a weekly basis, or the reason why you are tuning into content like this, is because you desire fulfillment and greater contribution. And as a result of that, you also desire to have greater wealth in your life, whether that be financial wealth, or wealth in fulfillment, or wealth in your relationships, or wealth in a contribution or influence you have in your industry. That's wealth. Wealth doesn't necessarily just mean finances. But here's the thing about wealth. Wealth is multiplied when you create value for other people. So instead of protecting your turf, think about how you can grow value for all, so that you can create greater wealth for yourself and the people that you care about. The third perspective to shift away from is the common perspective of lean on your gut instinct or learn from your past experiences. They're both they're both the same. And I hear this a lot as well. Trust your gut instinct. So let's talk about that a little bit. What's a gut instinct? A gut instinct is exactly instinctual. It's the more animalistic part of your brain that reacts to things, that has prey and predatory responses. In other words, run from danger, avoid criticism, avoid negativity. But what I want are the pleasing things, the positive things only. And this is very one-sided. It can get you in a lot of trouble if you are relying strictly on animalistic, instinctual reactions. The opposite of instinctual reactions is refined thought, rational, well-reasoned thought. That's not the same thing as instinct. Definitely not the same thing as gut instinct. Right? The other common belief, which is really one and the same thing, is that common sense of, well, learn from your past experiences. The danger from that is that, wouldn't you agree that oftentimes our past experiences, we remember the negatives way more than we remember the positives. We put more weight on the bad experiences of the past. And when we put more weight on that, we tend to protect ourselves because, well, those were bad experiences. I don't want that to happen again. And you can see how the consequences of that, remember, think about ripple effects, It's going to cause you not to make certain decisions that could lead to better opportunities. And it's going to result in you being hypervigilant about threats that maybe aren't even there. So as a result of that, it keeps you inside of this zone that may not be a comfort zone, but it definitely is more fear-driven than it is insightful or thoughtful. So shift away from relying on your gut instinct and shift away from learning from past experiences into a whole different way of thinking. And I talked about this earlier. Instead, the new perspective, it would be wise if the new perspective was that you are consistently and constantly refining and updating your mental models and your mindsets. Because your mental models is the way you interpret the world around you. And depending on how you interpret it, that's exactly what you're going to decide. It's going to be how you act and what you behave and what you decide. So if you desire a different result, wouldn't it stand to reason that in order for you to influence yourself to be able to do the things that were difficult for you or fearful for you or anxious for you before, it requires an update on your mental models. And the fourth perspective to shift away from is this other common perspective that you got to focus on your responsibilities and your activities. Now, this is very commonly advised in corporate environments where a lot of your KPIs and your metrics are performance metrics. But I'm guessing that you're here and you're listening because you desire to get to your next level. And it's a higher level role. You want to have more leadership opportunities. You want to have more visibility and more impact. So if you focus more on your responsibilities and your activities, it's going to be more entrenched in the performance metrics, and it's going to more deeply entrench why you should stay where you're at because you're so good at it, and you're so committed to it. It's going to enforce that more than it will enforce, well, you deserve to be at the next level. So the perspective shift that will be wise to make if you desire to get into higher level roles is to move away from sole or primary focus on responsibilities and activities, and instead shift into the perspective on focusing more on payoff and impact. And this is the difference. A lot of my clients come into my coaching program and they tell me, I want more influence. And to which my response would be, well, that's great, but influence, that's really too short-sighted. You might be thinking, well, how is influence short-sighted? You see, influence, you can be influential in your role right now in upholding your responsibilities and activities. You have influence in influencing other people's perspective that you're reliable, you're dependable, and you really are good at what you do. So you already have influence, but that's not where you want to have influence. So I say, well, don't just focus on influence. Focus on what's the longer-term directional impact you want to have, which is the payoff that you want to give to this company, to this team, to this industry. What's the payoff that you're going to provide? What's the value, the payoff of it? So focus more on that. Shift your mindset to focus on that instead, which is longer-term, future-focused, directional, and it's transformational. And so when you focus on that instead, then you get to have an enduring impact in your company and in your industry.